Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Lizeth Gonzalez, and we're here to talk about the Raynham Master Plan, and we're at workshop number 3. So we'll be talking about natural and cultural resources and open space and recreation today. Before we get started, I just want to share some reminders about our new virtual reality here. We are recording this meeting, and it will be posted to the Raynham Master Plan webpage once both meetings are completed. Closed captioning is available, and you can access that through your More chat feature, and it should give you the option to provide subtitles and closed captioning. Please remain muted during the presentation and keep your video off. It just seems to keep us connected a little bit more easily. If you have questions, please use the raise hand feature. And if you want to type a comment at any point, please feel free to type it into the chat function as well. I see a couple people have joined by phone. So if you'd like to mute and unmute yourself, *6, and to raise your hand, *9. We'll have staff here tonight monitoring the meeting and chat for any issues that may come up. But if there are any technical issues or disturbances, we'll shut down for a few minutes and just enter the meeting back in with the same link that you used the first time around. So getting into things, the project team, as I mentioned, my name is Lizeth Gonzalez, and I'm joined by Jed Cornock. We've been working on the Raynham Master Plan for quite a few months now, I think about a year actually. And we are at the point of workshop number 3. After discovery workshop, we've looked at land use, housing, and economic development, and now we're at this place where we'll be looking at open space and recreation, natural and cultural resources, as I mentioned. The next workshop to follow in a few months will touch on services and facilities, transportation, and circulation, and this will be the last topic-based workshop. The final open house will be a chance to see the final draft and implementation section of the master plan and give us your feedback for any changes that you'd like to make sure is included in the final version that's released to the public and voted on, right? Before we get into some of the more granular details of our topics tonight, I want to just emphasize and share some of the options to participate that have been available throughout the master plan. Obviously, we have the webpage as the locus for all information, data, how to access our meetings. So go there if you have any questions for us, if you have questions about what the master plan is. In addition, we have a survey that is continuously ongoing during the master plan, and it touches on all of the topics that you'll see in the master plan as a whole. It's just a great way to get some snapshots, and you'll see that we touch on those during some of these meetings as well. We have a comment card that you can access both digitally and a PDF version if you feel more comfortable emailing it to us or mailing it to us. We've tried to make it as easy as possible to contact us via text or calling. So we have a project number listed there, as well as an email that you can reach either Jed or I. In addition, you can feel free to follow us on our social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, to get just data information. And again, just kind of pushing all the activities that take place with all the outreach that we do related to these topics. And with that, I'll send it over to Jed.
Thanks, Lizeth. I'm going to take you through 3 main parts tonight. I'm going to highlight some of the main questions that we're going to be talking about tonight from the master plan survey. I just want to remind everybody I sent a link in the chat. So if you haven't filled out the survey, you simply click that link and take your time filling out those questions. I'm going to cover basically 4 questions and the results from those. We'll then touch upon the key takeaways or the main themes that we've heard so far. And then I'm just going to sort of summarize the interactive exercises that we have for tonight. And then I'll pass it along to Bill Napolitano, who's our environmental program director. He'll go through some of the maps that will help guide our conversations tonight. And then we'll pass it back over to Lizeth and myself to do sort of a cultural inventory review. So without further ado, we're excited to say, as of the last Zoom meeting, which was the 1st of March, we had over or just about 400 responses to our master plan survey, so it's doing really well. The questions that I'm going to cover tonight, the first, as you can see on the slide, are what amenities would you like to see in Raynham? And so again, because we're talking about open space and recreation and natural and cultural resources, this is important to discuss and to understand what people are saying. So as you can clearly see, people are interested in sidewalks, more crosswalks and walking trails and off-road bike paths. So those are some of the things that we'll want to keep in the back of our minds as we're talking about open space and recreation tonight. And the next question is recreational opportunities moving forward for the town. So clearly folks are focused on playgrounds and dog parks. Those are high on the list of things that folks would like to see. In fact, playgrounds was one of the things that we touched upon at our first meeting on the 1st of March. And then you can see on the slide other items such as swimming pools and boat launch areas. Those are, generally in the same range in terms of interest from the public. The next question that we wanted to highlight is, again, where should Raynham's focus be? And on the right-hand side, it's really preserving and protecting things like historical structures, as you can see, open space, wetlands, wildlife habitats. As you can see, for the most part, open space and wildlife habitats are the highest scoring activities. But for the most part, everything's sort of, in that same range. Obviously, the one that's lowest there is the flood zones. But those are some of the things that we'll want to talk about tonight. So, for example, the Taunton River and access to the river. Where are some vulnerable locations, and how can the town protect those open spaces that haven't been protected already, as well as the habitat areas that are in town. And the next question is an interesting one. So we asked, how satisfied are you with the current amount of protected open space in town? And as you can see, there's a vast majority of people who really, they're neither satisfied or dissatisfied. At first we were sort of puzzled by that. And the sense that we got from the first public meeting was that there's a lot of people who may not even know about the protected open space in town. And so therefore, that's some of the key takeaway messages that we're getting, is that information sharing is also an important item for the town to consider as you move forward. So as I mentioned, these key takeaways, these were built and started during the discovery workshop. That was our workshop number 1, which Lizeth highlighted earlier in the presentation. On the left-hand side are the color-coded chapters, if you will. There are a number of them that are highlighted in Mass General Law that need to be covered in your final plan. So tonight we're talking about the 2 that are in the pink or red color. And, I don't need to read it necessarily out loud. You can read it on the slide. But what we want to draw your attention to is the whole idea of protecting those important natural resources and open space. So how does the town do that in the next 10 years? And where are some areas that are important? And then also importantly are like your local events or your amenities, places that would sort of build the identity of Raynham, and also cultural events that perhaps are missing. There may be events from other communities that you've come across that, maybe something that you want to encourage Raynham to take on. So those are some of the topics that we want to cover tonight. And then lastly, as I mentioned, those activities that we'll ask folks to participate in. So we, at the end of this presentation, will essentially bring up this point of interest mapping exercise, and we'll walk through it with everybody, show everyone how to use it, encourage people to come back, but also stay tonight to help as if we were live in person. So this is essentially what we would do during any one of our public workshops if we obviously didn't have the COVID pandemic going on. So we would have a poster board, we'd have stickers and comment cards, and we would have conversations with folks. So what we want to be able to emphasize is that, folks come back to this presentation, they can click on that link, as you can see in item number 1. that'll bring them right to this points of interest exercise, and then also the cultural survey that we'll be covering in a little bit. With that, I'm going to pass it along over to Bill Napolitano.
All right, thank you, Jed. And thanks everybody for coming out tonight. We have a nice story map feature that's going on, and I would encourage everybody to go to the project page when you have spare time. These meetings are wonderful, but on the project page, you can take your time. You can look at the resources that the team has put together, maps like this, a couple of reports. And to preface my presentation here, I would say in particular for tonight's meeting, there are two reports that you should focus on that are on the project page. The Heritage Landscape Inventory that was done for Raynham with Serpent and other consultants. I saw Patricia Riley on here tonight. She was part of that report. And it's a wealth of information: environmental, cultural, significant landscapes, industrial era archaeology. And then the Biomap 2 report done by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, that came out in 2012. And it's a beautiful representation of a lot of the features that you'll be seeing on these maps. What areas are good for conservation, for resilience, for maintenance of habitat corridors and trails, stream continuity, and what endangered species and common species you have in the town of Raynham. So I would encourage everybody to look at those in conjunction with this workshop. So we'll start off with the water resources map. And what you have here is some DEP approved zone 2 aquifer. That's obviously important for your town's water supply. And potential aquifer areas or potential water supply areas. Again, this is in the Massachusetts DEP database. And when you're planning, especially build out and growth, you have to take two things into consideration. You want to retain these areas as much as possible in their natural state to help recharge. And you want to plan your growth around them, not over them, because once you lose them, that's it. Right, next. Yeah, if you look in some of the areas up there, now this is the habitat map. Part of Raynham is in the Hockomock Swamp ACEC, and this is the mapping block that I was talking about before that Natural Heritage has noted in their report, the Biomap 2 report for the town. These connote habitat connectivity, certain wildlife and species habitat, also areas that provide important natural services for the town of Raynham, as in promoting and retaining the town's resiliency. In other words, the ability to help the town bounce back from natural disasters. Areas like floodplain, forest, critical soils, carbon critical soils, things like that. Again, water resources. And Biomap 2, if you saw that last note on there, it was done in conjunction with the state and the Nature Conservancy. And the Nature Conservancy has landscape scale features built into these maps. Again, it's really important. Look at the maps that are in there. They'll number the certain habitat blocks and they'll tell you just what's in each one of them. The next one's really important too, open space in Chapter 61 lands. At one time, there was a lot of agricultural land up here in the southeast, in Raynham, the Taunton area, the whole bit. A lot of that's obviously been lost to development. Some of it's been put aside in agricultural preservation restrictions, where the town holds it or the state holds it, but it's the development rights that have been purchased from the farmers. It's really important to, again, treasure these types of facilities, these lands, for the importance of historical agriculture, the importance of what they can do as far as agriculturally significant lands and agriculturally significant soils. The soils are the things that help us retain our resiliency as a community. One of the things about other lands that are in chapter is that as farmers are aging in this part of the state, most of the farms are going the way of all things. They don't have heirs. There's not the interest to pursue agriculture. Although in Raynham, you're extremely fortunate. Some of the farms have very bright, young agricultural pioneers who want to continue farming even under the auspices of climate change. They meet regularly, they talk about technology, they talk about farm preservation and how they can work with other farmers in the Southeast. So it's a nice block that you have in Raynham. But again, agricultural lands are critical to preserve for what they offer us, the soils and the potential to feed ourselves in the future. And the town, when chapter lands go out of production, the town always has the first right of refusal, which again is a thing to look at when you're master planning and when you're evaluating these lands. Try to come up with a way to prioritize these lands for potential acquisition to help save what they offer the town. And in 2013, as part of the South Coast Rail study, corridor study, all the towns along the corridor participated in a priority preservation, priority protection area study associated with the corridor plan. The map you see up on the screen right now is that map. And the beauty of these maps is they were done with public participation. These are things that people in Raynham and Raynham at the time staffers, town staff, decided were important for preservation and development. The development areas are in purple. The preservation areas are in green, and there's mixed areas that are in orange that could be preservation and development. It was a joint effort in the Southeast. It was Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, OCPC, Old Colony Planning Council, and SERPID. We did about 31 cities and towns in the Southeast. And again, these were areas that were chosen by the residents and by the staff in Raynham for their special or unique qualities. I say their heart and soul value to the town, what represents the town best of all. And again, as far as open space, recreation, natural services to the town, wildlife habitat, critical habitat, wetlands, fisheries, and also cultural landscapes, cultural and historical landscapes. You can't forget those. It's such an important part of the town's character. So how do the town's priority areas relate to significant areas? Well, Jed's created a little slider map right here so you can see. This is what you picked. These are the priority areas, and here's what you picked laid over them. And if you see these areas match up, if you want to move it again one more time for me, Jed, they match up pretty well, especially as far as the priority protection areas, the things you're looking for.
Yeah, so Lizeth is controlling the meeting tonight,
okay.
but Lizeth, if you wouldn't mind, just if you could zoom in just a hair,
Yeah.
make sure that you use the plus and minus on the right-hand side, down at the bottom right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a really interesting slider function that we can provide, with these interactive maps, but you get a sense for whether or not a priority protection area is covering, say in this example, as we're looking at, why is it not covering a wildlife habitat area? Was there a particular reason? Should it in the future? Because, most of the supporting documents or the supporting town plans that support the master plan in town currently need to be updated. So one of the recommendations that we already have sort of queued up for the town is updating the priority protection and priority development areas. Because again, that was a 2013 effort and is now, hard to believe, 2021. So a lot of time has passed. And so it's an important exercise to go through approximately every 5 to 6 years to make sure that these areas still resonate with the people in town, and perhaps there are maybe additional areas to add based on new information that's come out. So we encourage everybody to sort of come back at their own leisure and use this slider and get a sense for what those priority areas look like and how they might change them if they could.
Yeah, and that's a key point, Jed, because the state's also developed critical green infrastructure maps that may include some of these areas that, as Jed was pointing out, don't show up on the map, the old maps, but would be very prominent in the new maps as far as everything you were talking about in your survey results: habitat connectivity, nature-based solutions to climate change, and environmental services provided by the natural environment in Raynham to all citizens of Raynham. So yeah, it's really good. Take a dig.
Yeah, the last thing I'll mention is, as many of you may already know, the master plan and a lot of your other supporting planning documents are very important when the town starts to secure grant funding. Anytime that the town will go forward with state grants, there's generally a question in there to make sure that either the town has created these planning documents or has updated them recently. So it shows the town is doing or moving forward in a good faith effort and making sure that they're planning ahead for all of these anticipated things. So again, it's a lot to do with putting your town in a better position for these grant funds.
All right. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to Lizette to go over the cultural inventory.
Yeah, so now that we've kind of gotten a sense for what our open spaces look like, what we want to protect, what we want to develop, the next part is, what are the things that make Raynham special, whether it be specific sites, certain amenities, and that's kind of why we've created this map feature that lets you see the specific cultural site that we've identified and where it is in town. Of course, this list isn't exhaustive. What our hope is that you'll take a look at this and validate some of our chosen sites and say, yes, this site I agree with is super special to Raynham and should be protected, should be maintained, and taking the time to invest in its future prosperity, whatever it may be. But that sign, that feedback is really important in developing this cultural inventory because it kind of guides us, right, and guides the town. There's also an option to, of course, let us know if there's something that may not be there already that you would like to see in the future, and that's helpful as well. So we're going to go through this, just kind of touch on a couple sites that we think are important and just kind of have general questions for you about them. So if there's something that catches your eye, feel free to chime in, but otherwise we'll kind of just like ask you questions about what we've seen. And Jed, please feel free to also ask questions about this. The first item that we kind of thought might be interesting to talk a little bit about was the milk bottle. I know it's a big feature in town. It's very emblematic of, I'm now in Raynham, but I wanted to get a sense for what you guys felt about the milk bottle, what it represents for you, and just kind of get a better sense of that. So I know there has been a couple discussions about whether or not the milk bottle is more of a historical site because it speaks back to a certain history, not only of that type of commerce and business, and its place in Raynham's future. So that's something that we can talk about a little bit more. As we move forward, we have a couple more sites, Gilmore Hall, St. Anne's. And this really, yeah.
Sorry, before you move on, is there anyone on the call who can tell us more about Gilmore Hall? We were told that it may be a historically significant site, and so we're just trying to get more information about it. And if anyone is having any issues unmuting, just remember that down at the bottom of your Zoom window are all of your features. I believe if you press and hold your space bar on your keyboard, that'll also allow you to unmute. So no one has no information about Gilmore Hall? Pat, I don't want to pick on you, but I'm hoping maybe we can jumpstart a conversation if anyone has any historical sites in town, perhaps maybe not Gilmore Hall, but another location that they know is special to the community.
I'm not sure where the raise hand feature is, Jed, but as far as Gilmore Hall, I know it does have some historical significance, obviously, named after the Gilmore family, which was, you know, an historical family in town. Everybody knows the legend of Toby Gilmore, who was a slave that was taken in by the Gilmore family. And actually, Captain Gilmore was, during the time of the Revolutionary War, Captain Gilmore was, I believe, in his 70s and was called in to serve, and his slave Toby Gilmore went in his place, and actually, according to legend, was served with George Washington and brought back a cannon as a souvenir from his service there. So there's a lot of legend anyway that goes with Gilmore Hall. Several years ago now, there was a town meeting vote to designate Gilmore Hall as a future historical museum for the town of Raynham, but we've never been able to actually access any funds or anything to move forward with that. I mean, the hope was Selectman Don McKinnon was the late Selectman Don McKinnon was a proponent of designating it for that purpose. Obviously, we have the Hannett House, but that is limited in size. So there was that hope. I offer that.
Thank you. I had no idea.
The legend of Toby Gilmore. Oh, yes.
Okay, we'll look it up for sure.
Yeah, Patricia, do we have, this is Bill Napolitano. We worked on the Heritage Landscape Inventory together. Do we have that cannon over at the Old Colony History Museum?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, we do.
Yes, there was always the hope that if we open up our own museum, maybe we can, you know, negotiate somehow to get it back to Raynham. But yes.
That would be fabulous.
I mean, I think the story is that once every 4th of July, it would be fired off to celebrate our independence.
Yep. It's good to hear your voice again. And I remember all the detail you added when we put together this report. Gilmore Hall is in that report. So
good to hear you as well, Bill.
And if I may just follow up, that desire for that museum is something that's still something that the town would like to move forward with, would like to continue exploring?
I would hope so, Lizeth. There hasn't been a lot of discussion. It's been sort of put on the back burner, obviously, with the coronavirus. Our historical commission hasn't really been meeting, but hopefully it would be something that maybe within the next, 10 years or whatever, we could actually find a way to move forward with that. We have a lot of historical items, I think, that are in different homes in Raynham. We don't want to lose that. Some of our, leaders in the community that we've lost, and I know they had a lot of historical documents that are sitting in homes and so forth. And I think we really need to promote, an opportunity to try to gather this all together.
Yeah, when we were putting the cultural inventory together, we took a look at that inventory that Bill mentioned you worked on, and I know there was a desire to continue compiling and kind of just organizing all the historical sites. So we're hoping this effort can really help with that as well. And if that's something that is an initiative that should be, moved forward, the master plan is a great place to start kind of laying the groundwork for movements and strategies like that. With the implementation chapter, we can definitely explore either funding opportunities or simply the next steps,
That would be great.
So I know past historical sites, did you have any other comments, Jen?
No, I was just going to thank Pat for chiming in, and if there's any other sites. So yeah, and really quickly, because Pat brought it up, the raise hand feature is now located in your toolbar under reactions. So down at the bottom, right next to a couple of things over from chat, if you click on that reactions with the face and the plus sign, you'll see the raise hand. Now, if that doesn't appear on your screen, you might be operating with a different version of Zoom at this point. You can always just turn on your camera and just kind of wave us down. But I'm always watching for people who are unmuting, so we'll definitely pause for you.
Great. So I know when it comes to putting together this cultural inventory, we consider both built sites, but also some natural sites. And obviously, you know, the Hockomock Swamp is a big site. It has a little bit of legend behind it. I did want to ask about the Raynham State Forest. That was caused a little bit of a stir in conversation for people. It was actually, some people mentioned this was the first time they'd heard of it. So I'm wondering what your relationship is to the state forest. Have you visited it? What has your experience been? And maybe talking about that way, we can come up with maybe some challenges and solutions, right?
Right. So has anyone ever visited the state forest? Okay. I know that when you know, we talked about it on the first, there was, as Lizeth mentioned, there was a lot of people who had not heard about it. I do believe there's a few folks who had spent some time walking around it, but they felt like the trail system was somewhat short and not marked well. So there was, you know, you get to a point where you're not quite sure if you're still in the state forest or on, you know, private property. So that might be something that we consider in the plan to, you know, highlight areas in town where people can go explore these walking trails, which is one of the items that was mentioned in the survey as key things to focus on.
And another thing that came up that also relates to not only the Raynham State Forest, but recreation sites, open space in general in town, is this issue of access and how to get there, and also how to make sure you can stay there. Parking, either being able to linger there for a little bit, park your car, regardless of whether or not it's the Raynham State Forest. If anyone has had experience with that, whether there's another site that you've tried visiting and just couldn't because there was no place to park your car, that would be a great thing to talk about and learn more about.
Yeah, that's one of the things that comes up frequently, folks, if you're thinking about it, and if you want to make your comments later. Kind of uniform wayfinding signage so that there's something that tips you off that this is a Raynham property. It could be a color, it could be a font, but if you have uniform wayfinding signage and maybe interactive maps, things on a website that you could use that would tell you a little bit about the facility, what assets you have at the facility. And again, like Lizeth and Jed were referring to, parking is so critical. You know, do you have trailhead parking? Do you have on-road parking? Are there areas that you know of that you like to frequent that you could say we need improved parking and we need improved trail signs and we need improved trail access in general? That would be great. A lot of people probably drive by assets that the town owns, or at least a lot of the assets have been discussed in plans, and they may not ever know that they're there. That came up the last time too. A lot of people have been driving by places for years. So if you can think of things, even if they're local, your neighborhoods, or even regional, jot them down. Give us some ideas. This is the place to do it.
And luckily, we've provided a number of tools to do that, either through the survey or you can use the wiki map, and we'll run through that with you for a little bit as well. I want to also touch on another natural site in town that maybe might be overshadowed by Johnson's Pond. I know everyone is familiar with Johnson's Pond. It's a site of a lot of activities, but I was hoping to get a better sense for your relationship with Hewitt's Pond. Do people visit it more for passive walking? Is it also a site for fishing and that type of recreation? Um, any thoughts on that? Maybe access is also an issue there.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we heard in our last meeting as well. There were some folks who didn't know, just like the state forest, didn't actually know where Hewitt's Pond or how to access it. Signage was another item.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's a really neat place too because of the habitat connectivity. It's connected to the east branch of the Forge River, but it's also a home culturally and historically. It's the former home of the Stearns sawmill as a historic asset. So there's a lot going on at Hewitt's Pond that maybe people don't know about, or maybe take for granted, but it's a beautiful natural and cultural area and historic area that could really be, played up as an asset to the town and to the region.
Mhm.
Jed, Lizette, this is Bob Iafredi, Bill also. If we're looking to do walking trails and, those kinds of things, Hewitt's Pond actually is connected to Gushy's Pond by a stream that goes around the school. I don't know if you can pan out with that map, but there's a lot of acreage there that could be connected together up against the highway that's owned by the town. That could be, tons of walking trails between those two bodies of water.
That's a
That's
great
great.
point. That's a great point. There's a lot going on there. Yeah, and if you have ideas on how things could get done, that would be great, Bob.
I think, Bill, you'd even mentioned at our last meeting the possibility for looking at a greenway type of trail to connect it all. 'Cause there are a lot of connections. I think it's just a matter of putting them all together.
Yep.
I actually saw Michael Lupus's comment in the chat. He said he's fished and gone canoeing there. Unfortunately, it seems to be Mosquito City. Is that a concern with a lot of recreation activities in town?
I think it's a concern with anything now, anything in the woods that has to do with mosquitoes or ticks or those kinds of things that you can get, obviously get sick at doing. Like when I was a kid, I was in the woods all the time. No one knew about Lyme disease and triple E and things like that. Unfortunately, in this day and age, it's more on everyone's mind. So some of those activities that some people would do, a lot of people won't do anymore just because of that concern.
Mhm.
Bob, can you talk a little bit about, or anyone else in the meeting for that matter, access to Gushy Pond? Is that roadway that appears to be right off of Tiddicate Road? I think that's Tiddicate Road. Is that the way in which people access Gushy Pond?
Yeah, so I'd have to do a little research. Part of that is town-owned land. Part of it's owned by the gun club. So I'll have to see where the property line starts and where it ends. I think the gun club access is to the south of that roadway. So that would be an access. But to the north of that, most of that land all the way out to 104 on the highway is town-owned property. So it's 495, I guess, in the highway.
Any other last thoughts on Hewitt Pond? Okay, great. So I know there's Johnson Pond. Borden Colony is well loved. Does anyone have any comments for Borden Colony, how we can continue to support it possibly, given that it is such a significant site in town? Are there any people who participate in the activities that take place there?
Or
I know it's
even, or even taking your kids down to the playground. We've heard that folks go to that small playground down there. There was interest in potentially giving that some room to breathe and expanding that a little bit. Seems like a really nice open space. You're one of a couple of other towns that I can think of off the top of my head that have this wide open ball field type town facility all in one location. Has anyone, ever had any issues down there with, say, attending a soccer game or perhaps a softball or baseball game where there just wasn't enough space or parking was an issue?
Tim Hayes actually mentioned in the chat that a larger playground at, I'm assuming Borden Colony, at that space would be nice. So we heard a lot about that at our last meeting, and the need for more playgrounds, as we saw the survey touches on that as well. And maybe, I know Borden Colony is a tight space and the ability to grow may be limited, but are there any other sites that you guys would consider for a playground, that type of recreational opportunity? Identifying those sites is also really important for these types of activities, because we can kind of put aside those sites when we talk about priority development, priority protection. We can kind of integrate that into that planning process as well.
The Public Safety Building Committee, along now with the support of the selectmen, have really identified Borden Colony. If we are successful and we build a new public safety building, which will also have public meeting space, they really like to focus the center of the town's cultural activities, recreational and cultural activities, along with some of the municipal stuff in that new building, to the Borden Colony area, where we'll have a brand new building. We have the Lions Club, we have the senior center. So that would kind of be the hub. So any other recreational activities or possibilities that are not currently going on at Borden Colony could be explored.
That's great. That's good to know. Another site that kind of interests me, I just thought it was a really great feature to have at a town-owned site, was the community gardens. I'd love to have something like that around here, but I don't, and I love that Raynham has it. Have any of you guys used them, or is that something that you would like to see more of? And that's totally okay. I know sometimes people are a little shy on Zoom meetings, so I really encourage you that if you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to send them through the wiki map, or indicate that in the cultural survey. That would be helpful and valuable as well. So don't forget, those options are always out there. And if there's anywhere that you'd like me to stop, please flag me down.
Yeah, so maybe what we can do is we just highlight, the fact that we've come up with 28 sites, and those include cultural sites, which, we've covered already, historic properties that we know of, open spaces, and then we're going to get to in just a second, community events. And so, we're not going to go through obviously all 28 of them tonight, but in probably a minute or two, we'll share the cultural survey, show everybody how to fill that survey out, and then indicate, where you can add your own particular site at the end of that survey.
So
Yeah,
this here are the events that Jed was talking about. We were able to identify Raynham Community Day as a really significant event that brings the town together, really. And I guess one of the things that would be interesting to hear more about is how you hear about it, where you see it advertised, and how maybe the town and local community members, leaders, champions can continue to support this type of event, as well as others, if there are any that you love just as much.
Have folks
This is one
attended?
of, Mhm.
Have folks attended the community day? And what would you tell us more about that? Was it an opportunity that you brought your family down to, extended family, spent the entire day, wish you had cotton candy? I love cotton candy. What are some of the things that are special about that event? See, Pat, I'm not sure if you're raising your hand or if you're giving us applause. I'll take the applause.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can just add that that Raynham Community Day has been going on for many years. People know it's always the third Saturday in September, and it's a great event. A lot of people just come and meet that haven't seen each other for a while. The fire department comes and they put on, they have a safe house usually there, and they show the kids how they use the hoses as shown in there. It's just a great event. A lot of community organizations go. And I mentioned the Gazebo Park, which is where that's held. That's a great location for cultural and community events. Some private events take place there. I mean, private organizations that will have events there. I think there's even been some Native American events held there. So it's a great location, part of the Borden Colony, aspect. We certainly can have more events like that. It's really, a wonderful event, where a lot of people just know and they just show up there. Of course, Kevin Ellis has organized that for many years. And I don't know if you have on your list of events also, I just want to mention our Memorial Day Parade, which our rave organization, started, and here you have it. Yes, that's a great community event. Everybody turns out for that, and it's just a fantastic event. And in conjunction with that, for that and for our other patriotic holidays, we decorate the center of town with our, flags that line the roadway. I think it's a great event to get people involved.
Pat, something that comes to mind is, September, I'm sort of crossing my fingers that we're all out of this COVID situation and we're able to, sort of get out of our homes. But maybe that's an event, if we're able to, that we could attend and spread the word about the master plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Do we know what the status is of parades? Somebody mentioned to me the governor has banned them for the year. Have you heard that, or?
It's hard to keep up nowadays.
I know. And it changes, I know.
I have not heard that. But, the recent news about, the CDC indicating, once you have your vaccine, that you're able to,
Right.
Sort of congregate without masks. So I thought that was real positive information that just came out. So
Right,
hopefully that's soon.
sure.
So you mentioned Kevin Ellis is the organizer. Is that?
For the Raynham Community Day, Kevin and his wife Shirley have done it for many years.
And I'm assuming we would be able to get in touch with them, say, find them on Facebook, find the event.
I'm not sure about that, but I can send you his email.
That would be great.
Yeah, definitely. And it hasn't happened recently, but in the past too, there was a road race that was connected with the Raynham Community Day, and at times it would benefit the Raynham Library. It started there at Borden Colony, and I think looped around through Orchard Street, north, south, and then North Main Street, and came back and ended up on that nice circle and ended up back there. And a lot of family members participated in that. I think the last couple of years we haven't had that, but in the past, that was part of that as well. There used to be Knights of Columbus Road Race. Again, I don't think nothing happened last year, but that was an annual event that happened as well, sponsored by the Knights of Columbus of St. Anne's, and it was always for their charity events.
Okay, great. Definitely something that, since it's not in the cultural inventory survey, I think it'd be something great that, if people want to see it again, I know it's been probably at least a year or two because of the pandemic, that it hasn't been put on, but it's something people want to continue to see. Definitely mention that in the survey. Thank you for bringing that up, Pat.
Sure.
And the remaining items on the cultural inventory survey really kind of close out with just some events that we saw that were highlighted either on Facebook, in town, key businesses. So I know there are a lot of small businesses. I've heard a call for more local small businesses in town. So how can we show them love and tell them that, they are part of Raynham's culture? And this is one way of doing so. If there's a business you see that may not be here and you want to include them on the survey, also feel free to write them in. I think that would be a great indication of how we can support the small business community just a little bit more. And that really closes out the cultural inventory survey. I want to give some time to have that open discussion that Jed and I had talked about earlier. So I'm going to pop open the point of interest mapping exercise, or I can actually pop open the survey first, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. So that's here. You can find that on the workshop webpage. So if you click on workshops here, it'll bring you down to the section here. Click on this icon, and if I can get to this, you'll have this window open up. It'll run you through all of the images. You can select which ones you like the most and continue through. And then towards the end, it does give you the option to fill in the blank, just kind of what's missing, what you would like to see more of. And we provided some general amenities that aren't currently in existence in Raynham, but we've heard some buzzing around that it would be something that's desirable in the future, from dog parks to more access to the Taunton River, the potential for a community center, cultural center, or recreation center. So just to see what the general support is for those types of amenities in town. And of course, that option to fill in the blank again. And then the other activity that we've included is the Wikimap exercise. And can open it. You'll see it's a map of Raynham. It has a lot of points from previous workshops. This is a great way to just build on what we've already been working on, what we've already been saying, and it's a great way to interact with previous comments. So just to give you an idea of what that might look like, we can go to any point here. You can click on it, and open space and recreation. You can say you agree or you disagree with the comment that's already there. Submit, and that's one way to interact with them. And then if you want to submit your own point, you can click up here, select whichever area you'd like. We'll do for today, we can do open space. I'm just gonna sample a point, and then you can type anything you'd like about that specific area. If there's anyone who wants to include a comment right now, please feel free to bring that up, and we're happy to put that point down for you. Alternatively, you can also take some time tomorrow, later tonight. You have plenty of time. This workshop will run for a few weeks, and we'll be able to record your comments that way. Let me do a split screen, actually.
So in the past, what we've heard, especially as it relates to open space and recreation, there were several subdivisions created on the eastern side of town. I believe the streets were Whippoorwill Drive, it's a mouthful, and Goldfinch I think it's Goldfinch Terrace, but I might have that wrong. The point being, they were cluster subdivisions. So they were essentially created open space and made the subdivision a bit more condensed. And that open space is sort of connected or at least adjacent to each other. And so folks indicated that that might be an opportunity to create some walking trails within that area. So again, you can, yeah, exactly, go to that particular point. If that's something that you agree with, you can simply just click, just like Lizette showed, and either click agree or disagree, or add an additional comment. This is all part of the consensus building process and getting to know what your priorities are for the town moving forward. So maybe we can, start off with that first question. Where are these special scenic or environmentally sensitive areas in town? Anytime you've been out and about and you just stop the car and say, "Gosh, that's really a lovely area." Where was that? When did you see that? And are those areas some places that you would like to see the town protect? Okay. Or even the idea of outdoor walking trails. Again, that was one of the things that we had heard. And thank you, Bob, for bringing up the whole idea of Gushy Pond to Hewitt's Pond. That's a great idea. An opportunity to come into the map. If folks agree with that that sentiment, maybe we could just you can unmute yourself and just say, I agree with that too, and we'll put the dot on the map for you, or even throw it into the chat.
Yeah, there are already some comments too on the map saying, continued preservation, access, and maintenance, and kind of in the middle. I feel like it's drawing that connection between the two of them, asking for greater access, the opportunity for walking, biking trails, and fishing opportunities.
Yeah, that might be a great opportunity for shared use paths through a Mass Trails grant or something like that. It would be a really good opportunity. One of the things that came up too is, and this is to kind of get you thinking, because again, you're the local experts. We're here to help you, basically facilitate your plan. But are there areas in town that have been mentioned in the past that maybe should have been protected, even where other organizations have come to you, like the Nature Conservancy might have said, this is a really valuable piece of land. What does the town have in mind? Or if you're working with other groups like the Wildlands Trust, I know they purchased the Oxbow in town, and they have land right across the Taunton River from the Oxbow. So it creates a nice opportunity, recreational opportunity. I think, what was it? White Street came up the last time. There's a big parcel of land there. And again, going back, I've been at this for a while. I remember the Nature Conservancy actually inquiring about that several years ago. And I was wondering if the town still has any, affection for that piece of land, or if anything was ever done, or if it's still in discussion. It came up the last time with a couple of folks, and I was surprised because I hadn't heard about it in years. But that's the kind of thing you can do in your master plan. Keep these things alive. Again, it's a nice connective piece too. It could be part of a trail system, obviously part of a water system. One of the things too, if you really want to play and have fun with a map, you get your hydro layer on there, your water layer, and then you call up your wetlands layer, and you'll really see how things are interconnected. A lot of times people lose the rivers and streams going through the wetlands, but they're there.
Yeah, those are a lot of great points, Bill. I should point out I'm actually hovering over the point about that piece of land on White Street.
Yep,
someone brought up that it's a significant site, and a great opportunity for the town to potentially acquire. It's currently on the market, and should the town consider purchasing it? You know, the conversation even came up about like pulling the troops together and seeing what the options are to move that process forward. So I see someone put that point down here. And someone else simply commented that it's an opportunity to create hiking, biking trails, and look at that, talking about seeking a state grant to purchase private land.
There you go.
Hey, Bill, this is Bob Iafredi again.
Yeah.
You bring a good point when you talk about wetland overlays. I kind of lean on the assessor's map and the overlays and the information that we have online when I do a lot of my my work in the office, but I'm not very confident that the overlays are accurate.
Right.
Especially, you know, the wetlands overlay, because I think they're outdated. So does Serped have any up-to-date current information that we may be able to use to see how accurate our information is?
I think right now, Bob, the state DCS, Division of Conservation Services, and DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, came out in 2019 with more up-to-date information on that. So if that's available, we could certainly look into that and put it in with your master plan maps. And one of the things you'd really notice is when you go to the state and click on the water layer, I call the hydro layer, you see, you know, streams just end in these broken segments. They appear all over the place. But then when you click on the wetlands layer in the open space maps, you really see the connectivity between these streams and even larger bodies of water that's going into ponds and things. So I know the map that they were displaying, I was in a group actually doing some state planning this past year. I'll see if that map's available. I know it was in draft form, but that would be the most up-to-date one. Like I said, it'd be dated 2019. So be much more up to date than what we have.
So if we can update mapping,
Yeah.
and that would show the wetlands, it would show the tributaries and the streams, that maybe even be able to show the recreational areas with an overlay. I think that would be a huge, huge thing for the town, for the people in town to access and to use.
Great point. And that's how you promote stewardship, and that's how you promote awareness, that sense of place. I think that's what you're referring to there, Bob. People have to really know what they have before they can adopt it and hold it dear.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point.
Bill, the selectman's office did get an email from a resident concerning that White Street property and wants to come before the selectman to discuss the possibility of acquiring it or conservation. It's a 105-acre parcel of land currently for sale on White Street. He wrote in his email, a recent Raynham resident's post on Facebook showed strong interest in pursuing this land for conservation, preservation, trail walking purposes. He also mentioned the land contains a vital spring-fed pond, and some residents believe an old-growth forest is also on the property. If this old-growth forest is confirmed, it would be the only one of its kind east of Wachusett Mountain. Are there grant funds, that the matching funds or something that the town could possibly access to purchase a property like that?
I believe so. And maybe that's a conversation that we can have. I know there are a lot of grant programs out there, and maybe it's a matter of exploring which ones would be best suited to this type of activity, because it is private land that we're purchasing for conservation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got some ideas on that, Pat, too. And first thing you'd probably want to do is validate the fact that it's an old growth forest. And there are some great resilience foresters around here. They'll talk about the value of the forest for its resilience and again, the services that it provides besides the nature of the forest itself. And I've also heard that pond is spring fed, and that would be really kind of cool to lock that piece of land up for what it has. Again, that's a rarity. If that land has the attributes that you're talking about, then it would be a real keeper as far as the town goes. You'd hate to see that lost to development.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. That's great. This is the stuff we want you guys to bring up. It's your plan. So if it works for you guys, then we're more than willing to help you do it.
Great.
Does anyone have any other comments regarding potential recreation sites in town? And it doesn't even have to be potential. It can be just saying, I love this site in town. I love Borden Colony. You know, I want a playground here. It's something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a complicated process.
I apologize in advance, Mike, or Michael. I'm gonna pick on you, but I see that you mentioned you have fished and gone canoeing. I believe that was at Hewitt's Pond. I'm curious if there's other locations in town where you know, it might be on your list to fish and go canoeing on, and you just can't get to. Are there areas that, you know, we should know about? I know that sometimes fishermen don't want to share where they go fishing, and I understand why. But maybe we can just pretend that you're just canoeing and not fishing there. In the event anyone's having any issues with the audio or trying to unmute themselves, you can always just share that in the chat and just let us know. Okay, here we go.
Okay. So Michael said Johnson's Pond and the Nip are great. Not too many hidden places that come to mind.
Absolutely.
How about the Taunton River? That has come up in the past a couple of times that, you know, folks really would like to see more access in town on the Taunton. Would that be something that folks would be in favor of having? Evidently, there was an effort, you don't exactly know when, but in the past, we'll say, to create just where Lizette is going down to on the map, down by the riverbed condos off of, I believe that's South Street East. There appears to be town-owned land that's on the west side of the road, and there was an effort to potentially create a boat launch or some sort of park. Bill, you might have a little bit more detail about what that was like.
And Pat would be familiar with this too. That's at the old King Iron Works. And back in 2002, when we had, Serpent was working with the towns on that one too, all of the towns, the main stem towns on the Taunton River. It was a Taunton Heritage River grant. The Taunton River is the only river right now designated in the State Heritage River Program. It was short-lived, but we got a nomination in there. And the Heritage River program gave Raynham a grant initially to explore the possibility of putting something there for river access, but it just wasn't in the cards at the time, and the town couldn't use the grant, so it was returned. But the thought of that has always been in there, and the idea of having canoe access on the Taunton does come up periodically. It has come up through the different planning studies that we've done. I know, like I said, the Wildlands Trust has acquired the Oxbow, and they're more than willing to let people, obviously, you know, come to use the Oxbow, but it will never be a canoe livery. There's a potential on land right next to the Oxbow that was owned by Doug King. I know he's doing a development, and he also had some of the land in floodplain protected by the Federal Wetlands Preserve Program. And this land is about 66 acres. He has a development that he's working on adjacent to it. But once that the development plans are finalized, he has been in discussion with the Wildlands Trust about setting up the rest of that land as recreation land and also canoe access. So that would be between the Oxbow and that, you'd have about 130 acres of land right off of the Taunton, and right across the river from that is 45 acres in the city of Taunton that the Wildlands Trust also owns. So these are things that, you may want to work with an organization like the Wildlands Trust to pursue, to create some great opportunities in the town of Raynham.
Yeah, I was just, looking at the town's online assessors map, and it appears that the parcel that Bill was just referring to, that it's under private ownership, is just to the north of the Oxbow, which on Lizette's map, which is directly to the left of that second sticker. Yep, right there. And so it's basically right where your cursor is and up into the northeast towards South Street East.
Yep.
Quite a large parcel.
Yeah. And right now is a good time, if you do have areas that you're thinking of, the Taunton River Stewardship Council, which are the stewards of the Taunton Wild and Scenic River. We have an access subcommittee that's going up and down the river and the tributaries, working with the cities and towns to explore access points and maybe help them develop grants to develop these access points. So it'd be a great time if you have things, in the hopper that you'd like to see, to contact the Taunton River Stewardship Council. It would be great to get a delegate from Raynham back on the Stewardship Council. For the first 15 years of its existence, Raynham held both the chair and the vice chair seats. And Lou Bousquet, who was your representative, he was the outgoing chair 3 years ago. He left, and nobody ever replaced him. So that'd probably be another thing you should push for open space, recreation, and river access. Get a delegate back on the committee. There's grant money there to be had too.
Okay. I think, understanding it's 7:16, some folks still have to eat dinner. And, we don't want to keep you all night, but we just want to remind everybody that, we're here to take any comments that you might still have. I'm going to share one more item in the chat. It's an open comment form. You just click on it, open response. You can tell us anything that you have on your mind. And Lizette, maybe I'll just hand the baton back to you to close out the meeting.
Yeah, for sure. So like Jed said, we don't want to take up any more of your time. I know people are hungry and it's late, and kids and all that. So just a big thank you to everyone who showed up, took some time to listen to the information that we have to share. And before I let everyone go, I do just want to remind you of the different ways that you can provide feedback. Of course, attending this meeting is one of the ways, but there are so many other ways to share your thoughts and concerns and kind of vision for Raynham. Visit the webpage. You can access all the workshop activities from there. And there are two. There's the Wikimap and the Cultural Inventory Survey, where at the end of it, you'll have a compiled resource of sites and places that are important to Raynham and really validate the idea that they deserve maintenance and preservation and just investment, of course. So please feel free to visit the webpage for those activities. Follow us on social media. Obviously, Facebook is a great way to find out about upcoming events. Once this workshop is completed and we've had a couple weeks to look over the feedback, we'll be putting out a summary so that way you can see what's been said, what's next, and where do we go from there, right? And if you'd like to revisit any of these meetings, we'll be posting the videos up on the webpage and on the YouTube site. So please feel free to visit all those resources, whichever one you prefer. And if you have any questions, you can reach out through that project email or Jed or myself directly. We'd be very happy to talk to you. So once again, thank you everyone for attending.